Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast, everyone. My name's Elijah. Last time I was here with you guys, I had the pleasure of talking to you about a sweep in Cincinnati. I have no such pleasure today. This was actually kind of a frustrating series. The Orioles split a formerly three-game series against the Blue Jays this week at home. Looked like we would get swept for the first time until the man who you could kind of say started this whole streak for us, Adley Rutschman, came through in our darkest hour. But before we get to that, I do want to thank the sponsor of our show. Bet Online is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoff stats. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today, betonline.ag, or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. So let's get into this series. The series started off the way you could possibly hope for. We've got Corbin Burnes on the mound against our division rival. They put out Jose Berrios, who is obviously very good. If I remember right, his extension was 9 figures. Talented pitcher, came over from the Twins. This was a pretty quiet game against the fourth, as you would until the fourth, as you would expect with two good pitchers on the mound. But bottom of the fourth inning, Adley takes a high and in fastball out onto the flag court, almost onto Utah Street. He hits it 107.5 miles an hour. It goes 425 feet. Immediately after that, Ryan O'Hearn steps up, fastball middle out, just leans into it and drives it toward left center until Dalton Varsho climbs the wall in left center in front of the Orioles bullpen. Cionel Perez is staring him down as he does it. But he robs Ryan O'Hearn. That one came off the bat over 103 miles an hour, traveled over 400 feet. And if I remember correctly, it was a home run in 10 out of 30 parks. So the Orioles take a 1-0 lead coming out of the fourth inning. In the sixth, Corbin Burnes does run into some trouble. After he recorded the first out, he walks Vlad. There's Bo Bichette single, and Daniel Vogelbach singles to bring home Guerrero. It's a tie game 1-1, and then Burnes gets a ground ball double play to end the inning. We flip to the bottom half of the inning, and don't you know it, Adley Rutschman steps up to the plate again, and once again, parks the ball on the flag court. It's a beautiful thing. This time it's a changeup on the outer half. Berrios is still in the game. The good guys are up 2-1. Craig Kimbrell, former closer, if any of you know him, Craig Kimbrell comes in and throws a clean seventh inning, looks really, really good, gets 2 strikeouts looking. Since we started this Kimbrell out of the closer role experiment, he has thrown 3 pretty good innings, 7th inning last week, and 11th inning when, we used him in a leverage situation, even though we were trying to not do that. And then the 7th inning today looked really, really good, looked much more in control. So after a scoreless bottom half of the 7th inning, Yeneda Cano comes up, enters into the 8th. Dalton Varsho hurt us earlier in the game, robbing Ryan O'Hearn. He hurts us once more. Cano hangs a changeup, and the flag court receives its 3rd visit of the day. The game is tied 2-2. After 2 walks, Danny Coulomb enters the game for Daniel Vogelbach. Induces a ground ball. Mateo makes a diving play in the hole. And because it's Vogelbach running, you still got time to turn that double play. Danny Coulomb, once again, is absolute nails out of the pen. We'll talk about him a tiny bit later. Jimmy Garcia replaces Berrios, and we get our first really, really sour, bitter taste of him as he strikes out the side. He is one of the best relievers in the game right now. Very impressive, just strictly based on, I think he's been in the league 10 years or so. So Garcia, who a bunch of people are throwing around as a potential trade candidate, he will not be that for us because there's just no way a division rival would trade such a talented reliever. That said, expect to see his name in some of these summer rumors as we approach the deadline. Jacob Webb throws a clean 9th for us. Jordan Romano throws a clean 9th for them. We go to extra innings. Jacob Webb remains in the game. After a bunt single and a foul out, Kevin Biggio is on 3rd with 1 out. Keegan Aiken comes in with the lefty Varsho coming up once more. And once more, it's the Dalton Varsho game. He grounds out to Mateo. Biggio scores. Orioles get out of the inning without any further damage, but we are down 3-2 going into the bottom of the 10th. We do start with a runner on, as this is extra innings. Ryan Mountcastle's on second base. Santander flies out to right, moving him to third, and he would stay there the rest of the game. Colton Cowser, I will not pretend that hitting a 98-mile-an-hour fastball down the heart of the plate is easy. It is not something I'm capable of, but Colton Cowser strikes out on a Jordan Romano fastball down the middle. Definitely disappointing to see that, just strikes out looking. It was center cut, heart of the plate, something he could undoubtedly tie the game with, even if he just pulls it on the ground to the right side. So, unfortunate there. Cowser strikes out looking. Jordan Westberg does draw a walk, but Cedric Mullins grounds out to end the game. So the Orioles drop game one. It is a 3-2 game, and the Orioles bats were pretty much just asleep the whole time. We can give credit to Berrios and Garcia for the dominant outings that they had. But at the same time, as I'll talk about later, we've been seeing this with the O's offense a little bit recently over the last week plus. Has not been too great. So takeaways from this game are really just two names. Dalton Varsho, he hurt us with his glove and his bat. He had the home run to tie the game at 2. He had the situational ground ball to go ahead in the 10th inning. People have made fun of the trade. The Jays traded Gabby Moreno to the Diamondbacks for Varsho before last season, before the 2023 season. Gabby Moreno obviously is phenomenal. I am not trying to take anything away from him, but Dalton Varsho is currently leading MLB outfielders in outs above average. Obviously, we saw him rob a home run in this game. He's a phenomenal fielder, and that is very much not a fluke. Last year, outs above average, he was in the 96th percentile, and 2022, before they traded for him, he was in the 99th percentile. Also in 2022, before the Jays traded for him, he popped 27 home runs, had a little bit of a downturn last year, but quite frankly, the entire Blue Jays lineup slumped last year. So you got to think it's something about the pitching coaches, about preparation. They can't figure out how Vlad Jr. can hit. So, Varsho is a talented dude is all I'm trying to say. This year, he does look a little bit better with the bat too. 15% better than league average by measure of OPS. That was his 7th home run of the year. So just wanted to give credit to a good player. This is not the completely lopsided trade that us Orioles fans like to make it out to be, because we like to make fun of the Jays. Gabby Moreno is an incredibly talented dude, but with Alejandro Kirk and Danny Jansen, catcher position was a position of surplus for the Jays, and they got somebody pretty special in Varsho. As another note, he's just in his first year of eligibility, so we will have to deal with him for another 2 years after this too. More importantly, the second name, Adley Rutschman. Last time I talked to you coming out of the Cincy series, I was talking about his hitting against right-handed pitchers as a left-handed hitter. He had a 552 OPS from the left side. The fun fact about that, and once again, this was his stats last Monday. The fun fact about that was his exact OPS from the right side in his rookie year that we were all talking about. Oh my gosh, he's kind of struggled against lefties. This is kind of concerning. That said, he pops 2 from the left side, 2 balls onto the flag court against a really talented arm in Jose Berrios. If you watched the game this afternoon too, you would know that Adley was not done. Couple more quick notes. I mentioned Kimbrel threw really well. Once again, he's thrown 3 scoreless innings since we moved him out of the closer role. I'm sure he'll be back there at some point. It's just about resetting him mentally, getting him back in the zone. Jimmy Garcia is a beast. Talked about that a little bit. Another note here is that Jacob Webb is being trusted in high leverage situations. He's looked really good despite taking the loss. He got 4 outs in this game and gave up just the bunt single. We will see him in game 2 as well in this next recap. But coming out of this series, his ERA is down to 147. His FIP is at a 2.64. He's striking out over 28% of guys he faces and walking a little bit over 8%. So the 20% K minus walk rate is pretty great. We like to see, relatively league average walk rates and elevated K rates Webb stuff has looked really good this year. He's been super effective, and just wanted to shout him out for that. So with that, let's move on to game 2. Kind of a joke there, kind of not. There was no game 2. Game 2 of this series was postponed due to rain. Was supposed to be a 3-game series. And so going into game 3 or game 2, whatever you want to say, the Orioles sweepless streak is then put on full blast. We are up against division rivals. This is the second time in 1 week that we, after dropping game 1 to the Nats last week, the second time in a week that we are like up against it. Last game of the series, need to win to continue the sweepless streak. And if you watch the game, you know that it really felt like it was done for about 99% of the game. Kyle Bradish was on the bump today against Yusei Kikuchi. Kikuchi having a really, really strong year. That said, it does not really matter how strong your season's going when you come up against leadoff man Jordan Westberg. Westberg continues to put perfect swings on middle away fastballs. I don't know why anyone would ever not crowd him at this point. He clearly loves to do damage on the outside half of the plate. He continues like hunting Eddie Murray's, 500th home run orange seat out there in right center. He's just peppering those sections. So Jordan Westberg, in his first at bat as a leadoff hitter in Major League Baseball, hits a solo shot, makes it 1-0 in the bottom of the first. Kyle Bradish really did not have his best command today. The stuff looked pretty good. He was up to 98 with the sinker, but there were a couple walks. There were a lot of deep counts. He was having a hard time putting people away, only had 3 strikeouts. So he gets into a bit of trouble in the 3rd inning. George Springer doubled, Vlad singled, and Bo Bichette doubles to bring home both of them. The Jays take a 2-1 lead. I do want to note at this moment, Anthony Santander almost makes the play. It's more of a fly ball than a line drive. It's over his head. He's going back on it. Jumps up. It goes off his glove. But he runs into the wall. He is shaken up and he's down on the ground for a minute on a knee. Hyde and the trainer kind of start to come out of the dugout, end up not doing it fully. But some lower half injury clearly hit him. Stays in the game, but it's going to come back into play later. Just wanted to point it out, make the note for now. In the end, Kyle Bradish only ends up going 4 innings. He threw 85 pitches to do so. To me, we had the off day yesterday as a result of the rain out. We've got an off day tomorrow. We've got a rested pen, and they will have more time to rest tomorrow. We've got a high pitch count on a guy just, a couple starts off of the injured list with elbow problems. I am totally cool with the early hook here. Bradish didn't necessarily have it. This game kind of felt a little bit big with the streak on the line too. It's a situation where you can pull him and you can absorb the blow with the pen. We've got plenty of arms. They all just rested yesterday. So I was happy with the early hook. I think it was the right move. Jacob Webb once again enters. He's in the 5th inning. He ends up walking the bases loaded over the course of this inning, not in a row or anything, but gets out of it cleanly. The Orioles then get to face former farmhand Zach Pop. This was the guy we let go in the Rule 5 draft, and as we did it, a bunch of people who follow the minor leagues said he's, mid-90s with a wipeout sinker, and like just kind of a, middling average slider, but the sinker is what really plays, and we saw it on full display today. Mike Elias cannot hit on every decision he makes, so we will give him grace there. We saw Genesis Cabrera and then had another dance with Jimmy Garcia. There was a chance in the bottom of the 7th with Cabrera in the game. James McCann, I shouldn't really call it a single. It was a bloop that kind of barely fell in between Springer and Vlad Guerrero. So Austin Hayes, for his first at bat off of the injured list, pinch hits for Cedric against the lefty Cabrera. He actually knocks a double, so we've got 2nd and 3rd, and then Jimmy Garcia comes in just to ruin all the fun. He strikes out Jordan Westberg. Mountcastle fouls out to the first baseman, and Gunnar grounds out to Vlad as well. So 2nd and 3rd, nobody out, cannot convert whatsoever. Once again, Garcia is phenomenal. That was in the bottom of the 7th. In the 8th, With Garcia still in, Anthony Santander, like, just cue shot, dribbles a ball weakly down the third baseline. They're slightly shifted on him, so it gets down, moves over for a double. Mateo bunts him over to third. Cowser is intentionally walked. And so let me step back. We've got first and third. There is one out, and James McCann is up. Now, I want to note that Adley is in the game as the DH. James McCann is in as the catcher. If you were to pinch hit for James McCann, you would need Adley to catch, unless you wanted to throw Ramon Urias behind the plate. It's not something I recommend, but if you were the manager, you could do it. So you would need to give up your DH. And if this goes into extra innings, if it gets spicy, then there's a chance a pitcher might hit. We've been making some substitutions. Kyle Stowers was in the game already. Yeah, so it's a bit of an interesting decision, but James McCann comes up, and it's just an absolutely insane series of events. Like, you could not draw it up more dramatically or like painfully as a fan. I was watching this at work. I've got MLB TV, so I can just set up my phone and kind of lay it flat on the desk, and I'm typing at my computer and everything, but you can just look down a little bit and check out the game every once in a while. And I can't, like, smack the table in the middle of this office space, and I can't shout, and I can't do anything. So I have to stay very composed and restrained as James McCann is up in this critical situation, down one run. And yeah, so first pitch is a 98-mile-an-hour sinker, like directly at McCann's shins. He had squared around a bunt. And I do think that, the call was that he offered at it. And I do think it's correct. He like kind of goes down with the bat, but then just kind of falls over and pulls it back as he is hitting the ground. So he tried to bunt. And I guess at first take here, let's just pause and evaluate the decision to bunt. Jimmy Garcia is in. We have seen him dominate us. He dominated us on Monday. He came into this game in the 7th inning, went 1-2-3 to shut down a rally that we had going. At face value, like trying to do something sneaky, a safety squeeze, which obviously was a safety squeeze, not a suicide squeeze, because Santander was not just tagged out at home, as McCann hit the dirt and did not make contact with it. So safety squeeze kind of makes sense. You could potentially catch some people off guard. There is one out at the time. So you theoretically, if it doesn't work, you've got Colton Cowser on second base with 2 outs. You've got one more shot. Cowser has a bit better speed. But at the same time, it's Anthony Santander on third base. Santander is already one of the slowest guys on the team. He is in the bottom quarter of the league. And we just talked about he had run into the wall earlier in the game. He had some kind of lower body, something. So he's clearly banged up. He was okay enough to stay in the game. He wasn't like limping as he was running down the third baseline. Or as he was running in the outfield. Third baseline, I guess that's a spoiler alert for later in this at bat. But so he's not like debilitated, but he is already one of the slower guys on the team, and he is not at his best, clearly. And so just the decision to pull a safety squeeze is a bold one. That's all I'm going to say. It's a bold one. On pitch one, try to pull something over. That makes sense. And then you move on with your life, and you've got 2 at-bats to try to get Santander in from third. In the first one, if McCann can elevate something that's beautiful, it can be a sac fly. If it gets to 2 outs, if McCann isn't able to do it, that's unfortunate. But in my eyes, like the chances of a safety squeeze working with Santander on third, who is not fast, are not all that high. And so I am like at face value kind of concerned with it. And then you do not have 2 chances with a runner on third base. You have wasted 1 chance with a runner on third base. And now you've got a guy on second with a series of, frankly, pretty good arms in the Jays outfield. So anyway, all that said, going in, first pitch, I'm fine with the bunt. Second pitch is a pitch timer violation on Garcia, so it's 1-1 now, which is great. McCann then squares again and fouls a ball off. And at this point, I was like, okay, the gimmick is up. They saw it the first time, and now you just have a slow guy on third base and a not that great a bunter at the dish. Like I know last year, people loved James McCann for the hard-nosed sacrifice bunt he put down. I don't even remember what game it was, but it like contributed to the mystique of James McCann. James McCann does not spend an hour a day bunting or anything like that. It's just not the case. And I'm not saying he's like that terrible at it, but it's just not a skill that's used very much in today's game. It is less reliable than it used to be because people practice it less, and because Yimi Garcia throws 98 miles an hour with a wipeout slider. It's just not as simple as put the bat out there and lay it down. So for all of these reasons, I was not pleased to see McCann square around for a second time, and even more displeased when he fouled the ball off. So, now we're just at a point where it's 1-2. You have given away 2 strikes on 2 pitches that were not strikes. This ball was about 4 inches off the inside of the plate. The other one was, like I said, literally at his shins. It drove him to the ground, him trying to contort his body to hit it. So, definitely not how you want to start an at-bat in this pivotal moment. And now it's 1-2. It feels like, the at-bat is pretty much done. It's just, all right, how is Garcia going to get him out? And can we avoid the double play? James McCann or Brandon Hyde, whoever is making decisions in this moment, says, forget the double play. I'm going to square around again. I'm squaring around again. I don't care that a foul ball on a bunt on 2 strikes already is a strikeout. I don't care. I don't care that I've shown no ability to go ahead and actually get this bunt down. I'm going for it. And sure enough, he bunts it. And if I remember right, Kevin Brown and Jim Palmer kind of groan because the ball's about to go foul. And inexplicably, I guess maybe partially explicably, if he really thinks he could make the play, which he kind of did, Vlad picks it up before it goes foul. It would have been a dead ball strikeout. And instead, Vlad Jr. scoops up the ball, throws home, and Santander is tagged out. Home plate umpire calls him out. Santander immediately, as he is still rolling on the ground from the slide, he is wagging his finger and he says, review it, review it, review it. And he says Jansen missed him. He was swiping his hand like the swipe tag with the glove. He says, he missed me. And the replays show very, very plainly that Danny Jansen swiped too early. He missed Santander. I took a screenshot and I threw it on our Twitter. I'm not just trying to shamelessly plug the Twitter. That's for the end of the show. But I took a screenshot of Santander's hand on the plate and Jansen's glove easily a foot past it. I have another screenshot from a frame before that where Jansen's glove is in the position at the plate and Santander's hand is not there yet. It just was a miss. He missed. And naturally the call stands and the Orioles are still losing. Ramon Arias strikes out, or I don't even remember what Ramon Arias did. Ramon Arias was out to end the inning. The call stood. The Orioles are still losing 2-1 going into the top of the 9th inning. Once again, this was such a strange call to me. I don't know. Santander is not fast, and you need to give him a little bit more to work with than that, in my eyes. And I guess one thing I will say is that Jansen missed because Santander was too slow. Santander got there after Vlad had made the play and Jansen had gone through in his head and just already made the play. They didn't sync it up to reality necessarily. Jansen in particular. Vlad got it there as quick as he should. That's correct. But, Jansen was catching the ball and applying the tag, and Santander just wasn't there yet. And that is why Santander actually scored, despite the fact that it didn't count. due to some stuff we'll talk about later. But, Santander, like, was too slow, basically, to execute a play like this. He might have been too slow before he hurt his leg earlier in the game, but he was definitely too slow after all that. And, you get rid of an opportunity to hit a ball through the infield. You get rid of an opportunity to get a fly ball deep enough to bring him home. You've obviously got the same speed problem with him coming home on a fly ball, but, you lose the opportunity for any of that to happen. Once again, Colton Cowser ended up on second base, but, it was Kyle Stowers in the 9-hole, and Urias, I think, was the only person on the bench at this point. So you don't have two of your stronger hitters coming up who are, in a position to get a base knock and bring Cowser home or anything like that. It just felt like a wasted opportunity. So gonna exhale one more time. It's okay. Through all of that time, Ciano Perez, Mike Bauman, and Dan the Man Coulomb locked it down. We head into the bottom of the 9th. The Orioles are down 2-1. Jordan Romano comes in, and it feels like we are just going through the sequence that we went through last time. Jimmy Garcia to Jordan Romano, two dominant relievers. And, at this point, you just heard me exhale. I exhaled after just reliving it in my head, talking to you guys. We're just a half inning at this point removed from having to battle both Jimmy Garcia and the entire MLB Umpires Association. The game feels like it's over. The sweepless streak feels like it's done. At this point, I'm like, reminiscing. I'm like getting mad at Mother Nature because she ruined the game yesterday and we would have had another chance. And, like while I'm saying some like bad things about Mother Nature in my head, Jordan Westberg, hits this weak ground ball over the pitcher's mound. And then Isaiah Kiner-Falefa boots it. And now I'm like, no, you know what? Baseball gods, you're giving me false hope. I'm not doing it. I'm not playing your game. I'm not playing your sick little game. No, it's not happening. Winning run is up to bat. I know, whatever. So one thing I will say is when the baseball gods present you with a gift, you should accept it and you should be grateful and you should cherish it because it was not false hope they were trying to give me. Adley Rutschman steps to the plate, and one more time for the series, he said he just had to have more home runs than games played in this series. He steps to the plate and puts yet another ball onto the flag court. And I guess that's not a perfect statement. It never actually made it over the railing. It went to a crew chief review to verify the call. A fan tried to interfere, and he tried to tempt the MLB Umpires Association into screwing us over one more time. He tried. I heard him. I saw it in the fan's eyes as he reached over the railing. He was, saying, "Umpires, I got you. Check me out." But the Umpires Association held fast, and it landed on the top side of the wall, bounced into the railing, confirmed for a home run. Adley Rutschman walks off the Blue Jays. The Orioles win 3-2 and split the series with the Jays. We're going to run through a couple quick notes here to wrap this up. First off, we can all exhale. The sweepless streak is intact. We live to fight another series, live to fight another day. That was stressful, though. So first, to the MLB Umpires Association. And, I encourage the few of you listening, I'm not going to pretend I got a huge platform or anything like that, or we at the Warehouse Pod are the biggest celebrities in the baseball world. It's definitely not true. But at the same time, this is something that I think all fans should be vocal about because I've never once talked to a fan online, read another fan's thoughts online, heard in a podcast. Nobody has ever said, God, I think the replay system is perfect. That nobody's ever said that in the history of the world. And so I encourage you guys to stay vocal about that and as a public forum, continue to put pressure on MLB to fix this. So, like, to the Umpires Association, the call stands should be something that happens 1 out of every, like, 20 reviews, like 5% of the time. There are so few situations where, with all of the camera angles available, even on the broadcast that are available to the public, with all those camera angles available, there are so few instances where it is truly indeterminate and you are unable to make a call. It just, like, it does not happen that frequently. I will grant that it does happen, but it is not as common as, like, the results would have us believe. And, I don't have these numbers for what percentage of the time. Please, like, if you are reading this on YouTube, or reading on YouTube, who reads on YouTube? Oh my God. If you are watching this on YouTube, if you are hearing this in podcast form and you do have these answers, I am, like, genuinely curious, but it feels significantly higher that the call stands is the call coming back from New York. And quite frankly, if the folks in New York are just going to say, like, yeah, man, I don't know, that was pretty close, like 1 in every 2 or 3 times that these things go to review, then I don't know what they're there for. I genuinely, I do not know what they're there for. There are so many camera angles. They can go, like, single frame by frame. These cameras are running over 100 frames per second. There's no excuse to be missing things this blatant. For those who didn't catch the play, again, like, I encourage you to go look at replays. There is a screenshot on our Twitter at the Warehouse Pod. Anthony Santander was safe. And that is where I will end my rant until the next time this comes back and screws the Orioles. And then I will come and I'll talk about this play, and I'll talk about how I talked about it on a previous podcast, which is this podcast. And we will get upset all over again. You remember how I said I needed to exhale after just talking about the game? I need to do it again. So, like, this was a stressful series. This was not that fun for Orioles fans. I love Adley, but it just, like, there was a lot of negativity leading up to that. And as brilliant as he is, he wasn't able to fully overcome. All that said, I'm going to reframe, and we're going to talk about some good stuff. I talked about Jacob Webb earlier, and earlier I told you, coming out of this series, he had an 8.6% walk rate. I just wanted to point out, you remember I told you that he walked the bases loaded today. That 8.6% walk rate is a total of 6 walks in all the batters that he's faced. So half of his walks came today. That is not really indicative of how well he's been pitching this year. And I just wanted to point that out because, the 20% difference in his K rate and his walk rate is really great by itself. If the walk rate were about half of what it is currently, it would look much better. Jacob Webb throwing the ball really, really well. Danny Coulombe, I brought him up earlier, but just wanted to give him his own shine right here. If my count is right, he's up to 12 inherited runners on the year, none of which have scored. His ERA is at 2.30. He is striking out 31.5% of batters faced. He is walking only 3.7%. His expected ERA is in the 95th percentile. His expected batting average is below the Mendoza line. His ground ball rate is at an even 60%. That's 96th percentile in the league. That is higher than Yennier Cano's last year. Granted, Cano has raised his this year for now. Danny Coulombe. I almost said Danny Cano. Danny Coulombe is an absolute revelation. Like, once again, this is just, like, such a huge win for the Orioles, for Mike Elias. I mean, you do not, well, I guess this is the argument of modern baseball, is that you do kind of create relievers out of nothing. You can do that, and you shouldn't pay for them too often. That said, Danny Coulombe, we got him for cash considerations, like, in the last 2 or 3 days before the season last year. He was great last year. He is unbelievable this year. Once again, he does not allow free passes. He has been striking people out at a pretty elite rate. And I told you the expected batting average is below the Mendoza line. He just does not allow good contact. It is all on the ground, 60% ground ball rate. I mean, the man is infallible. There are no holes in his game right now. The 2.30 ERA honestly surprised me. I was surprised it was that high. He's been the guy is phenomenal. He's got me stuttering over here. Another positive note, Jordan Westburg. Jordan Westburg now has the highest OPS on the team at 888. He has taken over Gunnar Henderson. He, by OPS, is over 50% better than league average. And yes, that means on a value basis, he is contributing what 1.5 normal people are. It cannot be said enough what it means to have 9.5 people worth of value in your lineup, as opposed to just 9 people. To expand on that, by Baseball References WAR, by B-WAR, he's on pace for 7.7 WAR. 2 players met that mark last year, Mookie Betts and Ronald Acuna Jr. And those 2 guys, it goes without saying, are some of the best players in all of baseball. Those are the only 2 people to have more B-WAR than the 7.7 that Jordan Westburg is on pace for. I am not necessarily saying that Jordan Westburg is an MVP candidate. I am not saying that Jordan Westburg is going to keep this up all year. That's probably not the case. But that said, credit to him. He is playing so incredibly well, and he does, he is not doing it in any kind of way that seems like he is playing way above his pay grade. It is just consistently good. It is good defense. He is punishing that middle away fastball that we talked about. He is punishing this pitch that he sets his sight on. He comes up with a good approach, and he is battling when he doesn't get that pitch. So, again, maybe he won't get 7.7 WAR. That's a career year for anybody on earth, but he is playing at an elite level right now. I jumped over to Fangraphs as well. By FWAR, he's on pace for 7.2 to 7.3, somewhere right in the middle of it. 3 players were that good last year. The same 2 names as before, Mookie Betts, Ronald Acuna Jr., but then also toss in Mookie's Dodgers teammate, Freddie Freeman. And those are the 3 players that met that mark last year. So by both estimations of WAR, he's on this incredible pace. He's wildly productive right now. If he keeps up even half of it for the rest of the year, he's a borderline all-star. And obviously a significant contributor to any team, especially ours. We are so glad to have him. Last positive note, I talked about Adley. I had said Adley wasn't done after the first game. The 3rd home run of this series, all from the left side, gives him 4 from the left and 4 from the right. And once again, I told you, after the Cincy series, he was 552 OPS from the left side. That was the same as his rookie year. I think I rehashed that earlier in this podcast, actually. But his 8 home runs are now tied for 4th among MLB catchers. That OPS against right-handed pitching has risen 90 points since I talked to you last week. It's now at a much more palatable 642. I told you I wasn't worried, and I'm just here to say this is why I wasn't. I feel very validated right now for laughing at it last week, not getting panicked, and then we see him taking, Berrios and Jordan Romano are 2 very, very good arms. They are cruxes of how the Jays have built their team. The Jays have pretty solid starting pitching. They have a really good back end of the bullpen. They are struggling, obviously, with the bats, but that is what it is. That does not, undermine the fact that they're starting pitching and their bullpen are both very good. With all those positive notes out of the way, I want to give one little kind of sad note. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the Orioles offense as a whole is starting to struggle a little bit right now. Over the last week plus, going back to the beginning of our series against the Nats, the O's have played 7 games and scored 22 runs. That is just over 3 per game. The Orioles left 11 men on base in today's game. In the same way that I was not worried about Adley last week, I am not going to tell you that I am panicking about the Orioles offense. The Orioles have a lot of really, really talented players here. All this new StatCast bat data came out, and I sometime will take the time to do more than just a recap, and I will talk about what the Orioles have done. I will try to identify certain hitters that are more interesting. But as a general note, they were showing these plots of the swing path length versus strictly the bat velocity, moving through the zone. The Orioles have, for all intents and purposes, the best combination of a short and fast swing all over the lineup. You know, the shorter the bat path, but the more power you can generate through it. I guess if you go strictly for the bat speed, you end up in a Giancarlo Stanton situation. His swing, I think, was like 9 feet in length or something like that. But he has the fastest bat speed in the game. It is well known what that contributes to. You throw him a slider low and away, and he swings really, really hard and misses it. Luis Arias, on the opposite side of the spectrum, has some of the slowest bat speed in the game, has one of the shortest swing paths. You know, he is very effective, but he is not able to really generate much power with it. The Orioles are finding this really, really impressive balance. They are going ahead and they are shortening swing paths while continuing to generate velocity. And it's a really unique thing, especially to have it across the whole team. So that is all to say, the Orioles offense is going to be fine. You know, we hammer swing decisions. If you are swinging at the right pitches and you are swinging short and you are swinging hard, that's a recipe for success. The Orioles will find their way. Once again, I just told you that this is a week and some change. I think a week and a day going back to the beginning of the Nats series on Tuesday. I'm recording this Wednesday night, the 16th. Wednesday night, it's 12:03. It just changed on me. Okay, Wednesday night, the 15th. That is so messed up. I'm trying to record a podcast here, and the clock is just changing. I'm recording on Wednesday the 15th, carrying over into Thursday the 16th. But yeah, so in just over a week and a day, the Orioles have been struggling. This is noticeable. You know, I think that I'm not the only person to make this observation. The Orioles offense looks a little bit quiet. But if you go back to the Sunday game just before the Tuesday that I'm drawing my sample size out to, that was the 11-0 win against the Reds. And the Orioles offense looked very good in that game. So, you know, this is not a situation where we need to panic. It is a mini slump. But something we can take out of it is kudos to the pitching staff, kudos to the bullpen, the rotation for keeping these games as close as they are. The Orioles have not been, you know, blown out. We split the series with the Nats. We split the series here, and we won the series over the weekend. So in this bad sample size, scoring over just over 3 runs a game, we also have a winning record, and that is because this is a complete team. This is what makes this team the best in the American League and hopefully a World Series winner. With that, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you all so much for listening. As always, subscribe and follow, whether on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Any likes, ratings, positive comments that you could give us are super appreciated. Once again, we always love hearing from you guys. thewarehousepod@gmail.com. You can email us. You can comment on YouTube. You can hit us up on Twitter @thewarehousepod. I meant it when I said if anybody can find any numbers on what percentage of umpire reviews result in confirmed, overturned versus the call stands. I'm genuinely curious. I'm going off of feels here, and maybe I acknowledge my bias. Maybe I'm twisting it because I am mad at a call stands that I heard today. But at the same time, you know, like, I just gave you a whole bunch of ways you can give us that information. I will try to find it for myself as well. Continue trying to find it. I didn't find it like in my cursory search today, but like, please, 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 if you have that information, do reach out. We would love to hear from you. Once again, thanks to the sponsor of this episode. Gosh, I told you it's 12 a.m. I'm getting sleepy. Once again, thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Bet Online. And with that, this has been the Warehouse Podcast. My name is Elijah, and thanks so much for listening. Go O's.